Yo, what is good, high performers and camp believers? Welcome to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. I am your podcast host and high performance mentor, Desi Abeda. All right, so we're hitting you another time with another. Geez, let me start over. I'm too excited for this one. When I get to share things that have like absolutely transformed my life, I just get too damn excited. So let me try that again. Welcome to another episode with our Mentorship Monday. Not that wasn't even great. All right, so the first part of this pod is absolute trash. The latter parts are going to be amazing. So for a couple of reasons. What's up, people? So welcome to another Mentorship Monday. I was thinking about what I wanted to do for this one, and I felt like playing on a past pod that I felt went really well because a lot of people started reaching out about it. And I talked about 3 life changing journals that absolutely transformed everything that I do to this day. And when I did that, not only a lot of my high performing clients reached out and said, "Hey, like, thank you so much. I've actually been doing this and this is really working." But then a lot of you as listeners started reaching out as well. And to me, I really like to be that person as your mentor and as your podcast host that tests things out and says like, okay, this is working, and then test it out with clients. And I'm like, okay, it's absolutely working. Let me go ahead and share this with you all. So anything that we share in these Mentorship Monday vids or pods, or even just in our Friday episodes, are things where I'm like, hey, let me help you to tap into the high performer within you, right? Let me teach you how to tap into that person that you need to embody and become so that you can live a life of true happiness, true fulfillment in anything that you do, health, business, whatever that is, right? And so I was looking at it and I was like, I posted this TikTok the other day that was actually addressing, hey, 3 books that helped me to calm my nervous system and to step into challenges and to overcome some of my limiting beliefs and some of the barriers that I've been trying to overcome for 30 plus years. And it actually got a lot of traction, and people started reaching out and saying like, oh my god, I've read this book, or like I bought this and it's still on my shelf. And so I figured I would turn this into a pod. So for today, we're going to be looking at 3 books that you need to read right now, like right this second, because after reading them, I'm finding that there's so much value in learning from other scientists, high performing people that are sharing this information, where we can start to bridge that gap. And that's really what my mentorship and coaching business is about, is like, hey, let me provide the bridge from information into application, right? And it's kind of the same thing that we do with these pods. And so for today, we're going to discuss 3 books that absolutely transformed my life and absolutely helped me to understand how to calm my nervous system so that I can step into challenges, I can step into really hard things, and overcoming that self-doubt, because I think a lot of us really struggle with that, right? And on the heels of that, real quick, Breaking Barriers is out right now. Just a real quick promo for you all. So for those who have been along for our series of overcoming limiting beliefs, I felt this tugging on my heart because people were reaching out about it, and I really, really enjoy when the engagement really skyrockets. I was like, you know what? Let me offer this free course of us diving into your behavior and diving into your inner self critic a little bit more so that you can take that next step in confidence. That next step could be developing better relationships for yourself, right? The next step can be starting that big business idea or honoring your creative endeavor, right? So for any of you artists out there, like whatever that is, really allowing you to understand that if you create systems and you create support, literally anything is possible. And I think I am ongoingly a walking example of that. And as someone who is still struggling through some of his limiting beliefs and really overcoming that and working to overcome that, I just want to share to you what's working on my side and also what's working with a lot of my clients too. So you get a really big touch there. So you'll be able to find that link in the show notes. It's absolutely free. Like I said, I felt this tugging on my heart, and I was like, you know what? Let me dive into this a little bit more with people, just so that we can help them to start to bridge that gap and start to understand the value of creating systems for themselves when they're trying to chase that really scary thing, but they know it's something that's tugging on their heart. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our 3 books that were absolutely life changing for me, and I hope they are for you. All right. So And so for those who are going to be viewing this on our YouTube channel, you're going to see this visual right here. We actually just we just applied and got the okay to release the videos on Spotify too. So I'm working out some of the tech with that. So you'll be able to see that, because we're no longer posting these on IGTVs, but we're posting them on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to see those visuals. But for all of my just listeners, as always, I'm going to try to explain this a little bit more, just so that you can get the value of what people might be seeing if they're seeing this via video. All right, so the first book that we're looking at is Jim Kwik's Limitless. Gosh, I've talked about his podcast so many times, and when I stumbled across his podcast, they're 5 to 6 minute pods about just ways for you to develop the habits, the rituals of becoming a better person. And in a lot of ways, if I'm being perfectly frank, the Mentorship Monday pods are from the idea from the Kwik Brain podcast. So Jim Kwik is he's a brain coach, but I think he does so much more. And when I tapped into this book, I really loved the notion that he had behind, like, hey, you can do hard things, right? You are your hero in your own hero's journey. And let me teach you how to become limitless in the way that you think, act, feel, and do, right? And one of the things that I really liked about this Limitless book is it touched on nutrition. It touched on mindset. It touched on your limiting beliefs. It touched on ways for you to make sure that you're taking care of that amazing organ that you have that functions everything that we do, which is your brain, right? And I felt like this book not only did things for me, but they helped to solidify and they validated things that I'm working on myself and things that I'm working on with clients, because it walked us through habits and it walked us through habit formation and how to really gain a better and a limitless life. And in so many ways too. And a lot of the interaction that Jim Kwik has in the book is so valuable, because he brings on some of his high performing, high profile clients that are just talking about some of these techniques. And so I felt like this is a really, really great way for you to start exploring how you're thinking, how you're feeling, exploring what you want to get out of your life, and then how to do that. It's very strategic, and it's something that I think is just continue to be a really big pusher, if you will, in my life. So I've read it. I'm actually reading it the second time. So I'm about halfway through once again, and I'm finding new things, each and every day that I had already marked off, but maybe didn't really set. But after reading it again, it's something that I'm like, wow, I'm astonished. All right. So that's our first book. So for our second book, it's Buddha's Brain. This is actually one that I came across. Wow, this really dates me. This is almost like 9-10 years ago, when I was working at an inpatient residential for eating disorders. And I was really getting a lot of training and just talking with other fantastic therapists about the role of trauma, neuroscience, and what happens in our nervous system after trauma happens, right? And one of the things that I've talked to everyone really a lot about, especially you as pod fam and pod listeners, is ways to calm your nervous system. And the thing that I really liked about this book, it is extremely scientific. So if you're someone who's like, hey, I hate science, like if anyone starts to talk science to me, my wife is actually one of those people, which is really funny. If anyone starts to talk science to me, I'm going to zone out. So this book right here is incredibly scientific. If you're someone who really loves science, like I do, if you're someone who's a clinician and can understand a lot of what's going on, you don't have to understand everything, but they do it in a way. Rick Hansen and the team that wrote this, they did it in a way where you can understand neuroscience to a certain extent, where it's like, okay, here's how I can understand how my nervous system rules a lot of my behavior and how my past conditioning does the same. And I felt like this book right here, and I haven't read it a second time, because when I read it the first time, there was just so much. I mean, you've probably done this, right? You read a fantastic book and you find yourself reading 10 pages and you got to put it down, because you got to set with it. That's what Brené Brown is to me in a lot of ways. I can only read like a little bit of her words, and I got to set it down and like let it sit. And that's what this book was. I mean, this book in itself was like almost like a 3-year read for me, because again, it was really validating, from someone who's working through a lot of his trauma healing and trying to understand how he operates when I am in fact triggered and just running around with that fight or flight response, and how to calm that nervous system and how to really start to receive the love, the happiness, and the wisdom that a lot of us want. This book right here, I thought, did such a fantastic job of helping you to dive through the science of neuroscience and ways to just start to understand that your human experience is a beautiful thing, and some of them are good, bad, and indifferent. And at the same time, if we really want to start looking at the role of happiness, love, and wisdom, we do have to start actually looking at our past conditioning. So this book right here was incredibly life changing for me. All right, last one. My man Jocko Willink. If you have not listened to his podcast, if you've not listened to Jocko speak, I'm sure if you heard his voice, you'd be like, okay, that's that guy. So Jocko Willink is a Navy SEAL officer. Him and Leif Babin wrote this book together, and they took a lot of their leadership tactics and stories from the war in Iraq and just their personal experience, and started to explore those leadership opportunities with C-level businessmen, with businessmen and women, like different types of entrepreneurs. They've even gone to teams, professional sports team, to be able to start to expand on these leadership tactics. And I think what it hones back to, and this read in itself is a very honest read. I just want to prompt you too, if you are in fact reading it, I want you to come from a place of curiosity, because it is really going to punch you in the face if you are someone who's like, I'm not the problem, it's other people. Because that's really, in a lot of ways, what this is. You've heard me talk about this time and time again, right around 2020, and I feel like I've gone through constant evolution. So, and I'm probably primed for another one here in a couple of years, just the way that my life works and the way that I understand my behavior now. But a couple of years ago, I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm really struggling in a lot of areas. I'm struggling in business. I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling as a parent. I'm just struggling as an individual. And I got to this place where I was like, you know what? Like I'm over this. And it started through reading Extreme Ownership. I got to a point where I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to take offense to everything that has happened up to this point. And I'm going to take offense in a way, and I'm going to start saying to myself, like, okay, everything up to this point does in these different areas that you're struggling with, it's your fault, man. Regardless of whether you want to admit it or not, like, hey, you have a role in every single thing. And you should take this to heart, and you should take offense to this, that these are struggles, because your role in these things are likely the catalyst or the things that are continuing to push us down a path that is no longer working for us. So it's time, and this is where I came up with the term radical responsibility. It's time for you to take radical responsibility for the way that you think, the way that you feel, and the way that you act. Okay. And I felt like being exposed to this book at that season in my life was so powerful. And like I said, it's such a really phenomenal read, because Jocko and Leif go through stories of, when things were really, really going down in the war. And, they talk about their life experiences, and it's just a really phenomenal read and a really good gut punch from the standpoint of, hey, you have a role in everything that has happened to your life. And if you want to be successful, you're going to have to take extreme ownership for your role in it. And you're going to have to take radical responsibility for your habits and your rituals. And I felt like this book, like I said, is such a big gut punch, but at the same time, it was a gut punch that I needed in my life. And so if you're someone right now kind of thinking to yourself, like, hey, Des, these are all really great books, like, which one should I start with? It kind of depends on your season in life. I mean, I personally would have you start with Limitless, because it is a little bit more of a lighter read. It is a little bit more of like, hey, let's start to expand on all the opportunities. And then from there, you can be primed to be in a state of, okay, I know that my behaviors have a role in anything that I'm doing. Let me go ahead and lead myself into extreme ownership. And then you can go into Buddha's brain, because I feel like we need to be in certain places in our life to really receive information. And sometimes a little seed gets planted, and that seed really doesn't get to flourish for a couple months or a couple years. And you know what that seed is. I just wanted to make sure that I planted some seeds in all of your beautiful brains to help you to understand that you have so much untapped potential. And if you're not waking up on a day-to-day basis, at least 80% of the time, of let me go chase that really important thing. Let me go put myself in uncomfortable situations. Let me go have that uncomfortable conversation. Let me go do this uncomfortable thing that I know is good for myself and I know is going to help me throughout the week or the month or the year. Like, let me go do that. If you're not doing that, then we need to do something about that. Okay. We don't want you, they call these people the Walking Dead. No, this is not a shout out to the show. I've not seen it. Don't beat me over the head for that. Okay. But they call them the Walking Dead, of people who are simply just existing in life and really not living. Okay, so let's be people who are living this week. Let's be people who are priming ourselves, who are learning and reaching out for assistance to kind of bridge that gap from information to application. All right, love y'all. See you on Friday. Let's go.